Hi gang, it's Hexy. Let's catch up with Gettysburg. Fateful Lightning, the Battle of Gettysburg. This very, very old, unique, one-of-a-kind type Gettysburg game. Right. So I said it in the first video that while not probably anywhere close to its appearance and maybe the way it plays, but it is similar to Herman Luttman's Blind Swords, I think, when it comes to like the casualties and stuff. It's not, you're not taking number losses. Your units get disrupted. They get a second disruption. They go off on a track called eliminated units. But then they have this interesting little concept here on the charts where your major formations have these counters. And you'll see on these counters, let's see the front side, it has a 15 in that lower corner. Well, that's 15 extra strength points. So you put that on this chart over here on his plus 10 side, and when a unit gets eliminated, he goes in this box. And then you can bring him back on in a certain phase, and when you bring a unit back on, you move that thing down a point. So eventually they will have no points left, and you can't... What it does is it's representing a line of units that is the units that are behind the front line. So if you've got multiple ranks of units, what it's doing is, because only the front line units are going to do the fighting, that's how it represents it in this game. So you don't have a bunch of number counters out there on the map. You know how, like when you play the Great Battles of American Civil War, you might have a stack of 1,000 men or a 10 strength unit, but only 6 of them or whatever it is, I can't remember off the top of my head right now, only they can fire out of the hex. So this eliminates that. And most of your units on the map have a strength of like 2 anyhow. So there might be, there's some of the cavalry's like strength of 1. And then they have their morale rating, which is the biggest factor in the game, is their morale rating, which is the big number usually in the bottom right-hand corner of the counter. All right. So that's an interesting little concept for a game, which makes having to do paperwork a lot easier to deal with. Okay. All right, and once again, the other unique thing is the couplets thing, the phases. So you have your day track, then you have your turn track, and then you have your couplets. And these couplets can just go endlessly. Once you get to 4, it can keep going until you roll for a change or the turn ends. Okay? If you roll on the 4th couplet or anything after that, if you roll for a change, that means to change who has the initiative. On a change initiative on the 4th turn, whoever it changes to, they can decide to end the turn if they want or keep going. All right? And then once it changes, you start all over again. Back here at the first couplet, you move the turn forward 1, and then everybody rolls for initiative again. Now, it's kind of been stinky for me because other than the late morning turn, everybody's had low initiative, which means their movement allowance is 1. Unless they have an active leader where you can add the active leader's command bonus or command value, his plus rating, to the movement point. So if you got a leader with a +3, now that unit that he's stacked with, if you choose to do that with the leader, can move 4 movement points. All right, which is how some of these units, like Howard rushing to the front up here with a couple of regiments. All right, stacking is three units in a hex, combat units. All right, and you don't ever have to think anything different because of terrain. All right, so let's talk about the fight. This is interesting, because for a majority of it, it's representing exactly, oops, going the wrong way here, as the first day went. Don't mind my nicotine pipe there. Okay, so you'll notice you don't see a whole bunch of casualties laying in here or a bunch of strength markers, because there just aren't any. You've got these hero units that most brigades will have some, okay? Sometimes they're specific to a regiment, like the 6th Wisconsin here has their hero, which, who was it? Colonel, I don't remember what his name was off the top of my head, but he did a fantastic job along McPherson's Ridge on day 1, especially the railroad cut. And he's, of course, part of the Iron Brigade. And then Reynolds is there, Buford's there. So if you have low initiative for the turn, all right, which it stays that way for the entire turn, every one of the couplets, your leaders are inactive, but you roll to activate them. They have a number on their backside. You have to roll that number or less, and then the leader remains active for the rest of the turn. All right? So we are in the early afternoon turn now. The only thing I had with this game that I didn't like, but it was accurate, was they had Rhodes and Early arriving at the same time. Well, because this game is not done in time, like 20-minute time turns or 30-minute time turns, they both did arrive in the early afternoon, which I think was what, noon and 1 or 11 and noon or something like that. I think it was like noon and 1 or 1 and 2. So they came on together, which, as you can see, Early was already down here on top of Gettysburg, and he's rolling over the right side of the First Corps, which I've got Buford's, or I got Devon or Gamble out there, covering that right side. Because of the low initiative, these units down here, you've got, the remainder of First Corps, which there's Paul, so this is the 2nd Division, okay, in Baxter, which this would be Robinson's boys, and then the remaining units of the 11th Corps, because of that low initiative, they haven't gotten as far forward, because these guys would have been up in here, all right? I'm sorry, this group here would have been up in here historically. But even that being said, because of the low initiative, the only thing that can move, you can't move into an enemy infantry zone of control unless you have a leader stacked with you and you're doing a charge. So this is mostly just a maneuver type thing. You can shoot or bombard if you don't move, which can cause disruption. The problem is you can't double disrupt a unit doing fire combat or bombard combat. So you're not really causing any casualties. Now, did get fortunate enough to have an actual attack, a charge with Rhodes right here. There was a unit right there, and he charged with those units in there, and they won, and they actually eliminated the unit and sent him to the eliminated box. Correction. Yeah, they eliminated him, and there was another unit that routed. Now, when you rout, the unit comes over here, and he goes into this route track. And there's specific cases where he goes to a specific spot. And then at the end of the turn, all right, he won't do nothing until the turn's over. In the administrative phase, they start to come down this box. And then when they're on 0, and then the administrative phase happens, they come back onto the map, all right? And they come back on like next to one of their, the units from their formation, or next to one of the leaders or with the leader. So the game is playing appropriately. It's just different. This is like I say, other than Blind Swords, this is nothing like what I played. All right, so what do we got going on here? All right, Heath has everybody on the board, and Pettigrew's a big brigade. All right, most of these guys' morales are 6. You got a few that are 7. You got Rhodes came in over here in entry area B. All right, he's crashed in on this side, and Pender is maneuvering around. Boy, if I ever get rid of these low initiatives, they'll get some ground going. Now, the Union was actually up here along McPherson's Ridge, that runs the farthest west portion of it. But because of Early popping in over here, the withdrawal's already started, all right? So without a whole lot of actual, where you're rolling dice to do combat and stuff, the game is sort of following suit. I mean, the way things happened with the way reinforcements came in. It's going to get interesting now because, like I said, you've got 11th Corps and 1st Corps. The remaining units are coming up. So depending on what how this thing will end, because both sides have low initiative right now, so nobody's moving more than 1 hex at a time, all right? So the pace is going to be fine, and who knows how long these couplets will keep going. You might have 10 or 12 of these things before you change, before the phase ends, and you go to the next turn. All right, so, yeah, I know the map is not super duper. This kind of throws me off here. A couple of comments about being a coffee stain or a mocha or something like that, or mustard on the map. But it's actually a pretty decent map, and it covers way well. Because, I mean, there's Culp's Hill, there's Cemetery Hill, there's Cemetery Ridge. Here's Little Round Top. Here's Big Round Top, here's Devil's Den, here's Warfield Ridge, the Peach Orchard, all right? And then you got Wolf's Hill and Benner's Hill. Wolf's Hill, here's Benner's Hill. And look how far this thing goes towards Baltimore. It goes way back here. And, of course, these are your victory. Those are your objective hexes for the Confederate combat train to get there, or to get there, or to get down here. All right? So we're going to push on. We are 3 turns into the first day. We're in the final, we're like in the overtime shootout couplets of the 3rd turn, which is early afternoon. Next turn will be late afternoon. And actually, the thing actually plays pretty smooth, so there's not a whole bunch of hubbub and digging for rules as you play. Interesting leader rules, interesting hero rules, interesting bombardment, which is fire combat rules, and interesting attack rules. All right, so this is Fateful Lightning, the Battle of Gettysburg from XTR Corporation. We'll get this thing posted so y'all can be up to date with what's going on. All right, this is Hexy. Talk to you soon.